That night was supposed to be simple. It was a celebration, right? A reunion for actors Rowoon and Park Eun, a big thank you to the fans. But from the moment the lights went down, you could feel it. Something else was in the air. What was supposed to be a fun anniversary concert was about to turn into something way more profound. A moment that would totally change how everyone saw these two stars. So let's get into how one single night unraveled 2 years of unspoken feelings.
In that quote, it just nails the feeling in that room. The applause kind of died down, and this hush just fell over everybody. It was a silence you can almost touch. It was like every single person, every camera, was holding its breath, just waiting for a truth that had been kept under wraps for way too long. They came to celebrate a drama, but they were about to see a real-life story unfold, completely unscripted. And to help us really feel the emotions of this story, we'll be using these illustrations to bring each moment to life.
So our story really kicks off right here, on stage, with Rowoon and Park Eun. And right from the start, you could see this quiet weight on Rowoon's shoulders. It's the kind of thing a person tries to hide, but you can't quite pull it off. And even Park Eun, who's known for her graceful, easy smile, even she seemed a little unsure of what was coming. The air was just charged with this history that everyone could feel, but nobody could put a name on. It was way more than professional respect. It was that heavy feeling between two people with an unfinished story.
Now here's the thing you have to understand. This tension wasn't new. Nope. It had been building quietly for 2 whole years, ever since their drama ended. So this concert wasn't just a reunion for the fans. It was the climax of all those quiet moments, those subtle looks, and all the words that were never said between them. This night, it felt like it was always meant to happen, like a final chapter that just had to be written out in the open.
This timeline really breaks down that 2-year period, and you can see how their connection just kept evolving. It all starts right after the drama, where their on-screen chemistry was just electric, But then it was a string of professional things: interviews, brand shoots, an international workshop. On the surface, it was just work. But if you were really paying attention, each one of these moments was another little chapter in a much quieter story, where this silent understanding was just growing and growing between them, away from all the cameras.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, because you have these two realities playing out at the same time. On the left, you've got what we all saw: 2 polite, professional people keeping a careful distance to stop any rumors. But on the right, that's what was really going on under the surface. Those quiet little gestures, that careful distance, it wasn't about avoiding gossip. It was about someone trying to handle these huge personal feelings and someone else who seemed to get it completely without a single word needing to be said. It's just a reminder of how different public image and private truth can be.
In every great story, there's a turning point, right? Well, for this one, it showed up about halfway through the event. It was during the fan Q&A, which was supposed to be the most fun, easygoing part of the night. Just light questions, funny stories. But one question, just one simple little question, was about to change the entire vibe in the room and set the stage for a reveal nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming.
And there it is. The question that changed everything. It sounds pretty simple, right? It's the kind of question actors get all the time. Everyone was expecting a safe practice story from the set, maybe about a funny blooper or a really tough scene. Even Park Eun turned to him with this calm, trusting smile, like she knew exactly what story he was going to tell. But she was wrong. They were all wrong.
But he didn't answer, not right away. He just stood there, holding the microphone. And in that tiny little pause, you could feel it. The whole mood shifted. A split second of hesitation. The air just went still. This was not going to be a simple answer. The easy way out was right there for him, but he wasn't taking it.
Then he just lowered his eyes, took this slow, deep breath, and all that fun, playful energy from the Q&A, it just evaporated. The cameras zoomed in. They knew something was up. Every single person in that giant hall was glued to him because they knew something real, something not in the script, was about to happen. That quiet got heavy.
And in that quiet, you could feel thousands of people holding their breath at the exact same time. It's that electric kind of stillness, the kind that makes you stop what you're doing and lean in a little closer. He was about to speak, and everyone in that room and everyone watching from home knew this was going to be different. This was going to be real.
And what happened next? Well, it was the climax of this entire 2-year story. A secret he'd held on to for so long, all wrapped up in a single object, was finally about to come out into the open, in front of thousands of people. This was it, the moment of truth.
The first words out of his mouth just shattered everyone's expectations.
His voice was steady, but you could hear this little tremor of vulnerability in it. He wasn't going to talk about the drama. He was going to talk about what happened after. You could feel this little ripple of shock go through the crowd, like everyone just realized the script had officially been thrown out the window.
So he starts painting this picture for everyone. The crew was gone, the set was empty and silent. It was just the two of them staying behind. And it was in that quiet, unguarded moment, he said, that he looked at her and just knew his feelings had crossed a line. She wasn't just a colleague anymore. You could see Park Eun blink. Her composure was perfect. But her eyes showed she was realizing something she'd suspected but never let herself fully believe. And then came the big reveal, and his actions were so slow, so deliberate. He reaches into his jacket. The audience holds its breath. He pulls out this little velvet pouch. A wave of confusion goes through the crowd. He opens it slowly, drawing out the suspense until, finally, everyone saw it. Inside was the necklace.
And you have to understand, the meaning behind this necklace is huge. This wasn't just some random necklace. It was the real, non-prop version of the one her character wore in the drama. And then he revealed that he had quietly asked to keep it 2 years ago on that very last day of filming. He had been holding on to this secret, this tiny piece of a life-changing moment, this whole time.
So why did he keep it? He explained it wasn't just a souvenir from a job. It was a reminder of the trust and the warmth he brought into his life, not just as an acting partner, but as a person. At this point, even the host was speechless. The audience was just frozen. He held the necklace in his hands and looked at her with a kind of raw honesty you just can't fake.
So the truth is out there, hanging in the air. And all eyes immediately shift from him to her. I mean, how do you react to something that personal, that public? Her response wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was something so much more powerful, something that spoke to the quiet language they've been sharing for years.
For what felt like a really long time, she just didn't move. She just looked at the necklace, and something in her expression just softened. It was a look that comes from years of carrying feelings around quietly, never giving them a name. It was a look of total recognition.
You can just imagine what was going through her mind, right? As he stood there, all these little moments she'd probably pushed aside just came flooding back. She remembered that last night, that comfortable silence. But she also remembered all the other things, the times he'd shield her from the wind or bring her tea without being asked, the rare times he let his professional mask slip, but only with her. His confession was the one thing that tied all those quiet little moments together. The entire arena was just waiting for her. They had just seen this confession that felt like it was straight out of a movie, except it was real. And now they were all waiting for the ending. She reached out, very slowly, and took the necklace from him, meeting his honesty with her own quiet grace. And then she spoke. Her voice was so gentle, but her words landed with this incredible weight, just cutting right through the silence. 3 simple words that confirmed everything. I always knew. It wasn't a question. It wasn't surprise. It was an acknowledgement, a truth she had held just as quietly for just as long as he had. You could see him just freeze for a second, almost like he couldn't believe the weight he'd been carrying was finally gone. And then this soft laugh, just pure relief, escaped him. She stepped a little closer, and it was so natural. It felt like that careful professional distance between them had never even existed. The audience just erupted, cheers, gasps, even some tears. They were watching the end of one story and the beginning of a whole new one.
You know, what everyone saw that night was something really rare. It wasn't some staged, dramatic stunt for the cameras. It was 2 people who have been so cautious for so long, finally just choosing to be honest, with themselves and with each other. It was quiet, it was mature, and it was a truth that reminds you that sometimes the deepest connections are built in the silent spaces between the words.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. This whole story, 2 years of quiet feelings and a hidden kimono, all came down to one single moment of courage. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often in our own lives are the most important things the ones we leave unsaid, just waiting for the right moment and the right person to finally let them break the surface.